Why do vegans push others to be vegans? Because veganism is not a personal ideology, it's a justice movement for the non human animals. Whenever we talk about veganism, it's important to think of it in the same line as other social justice movements that fight against the unjustified privilege of one group over another group. In case of veganism, the same phenomenon is explained in the context of human animal relationship called speciesism, where moral consideration is denied to non human animals simply because they belong to another species, treating them like objects and commodities to be owned, used and disposed of for human purposes, thereby disregarding the inherent value of their life as sentient beings with the capacity for having positive and negative subjective experiences just like us. Let's understand what veganism is not. So, first, veganism is not about suffering, it's about rights. If suffering were the only concern, then a system where animals are painlessly killed with minimal distress could be justified. However, from a rights perspective, this is completely unacceptable. The real issue is not with the intensity of suffering, it's the denial of the fundamental interest of an individual to exist for their own sake. Suffering can be reduced to a certain degree, but the real problem is with the exploitation, which is the very foundation of the system. Exploitation means treating a sentient being as a means to an end, denying their freedom and autonomy and treating them as mere resources and slaves. Therefore, veganism, in principle, is a radical shift from the more common welfare based framework to a right based framework. See, welfare approaches aim to reduce suffering within the system of exploitation, whereas a right based approach questions the very ethics of a system that views sentient animals as commodities to be used in the first place. Even under the best welfare conditions, three things remain constant always. First of all, animals are bred into existence for human purposes. Second, their lives are completely controlled at every stage. Their autonomy is not there, right? And third, when they are no longer useful, they are ultimately killed. Therefore, veganism takes the abolitionist position that advocates for completely ending the use of non-human animals in all forms for all purposes. Because under any framework of use, their fundamental interests are always mandatorily overridden and violated. Second, veganism is not about loving animals, it's about respecting them. Love is a great virtue, for sure, but by its nature, love can be selective and non obligatory. Respect, on the other hand, is a consistent moral principle. Respecting someone means recognizing their inherent value, acknowledging their boundaries, and refraining from using them as mere means. We do not need to love animals in order to not exploit them, right? We just need to recognize that they are not mere objects to be consumed or used. And just like us, they exist in this world for their own purpose, and they owe nothing to us. Therefore, veganism is not a sentimental position, it's an ethical stance. And finally, veganism is not something great, it's just basic decency. That means non exploitation is the minimum standard of ethical behavior. Isn't it obvious that we do not consider not harming other human beings as something great? Right? It's just normal, it's just given. So, why not have the same moral bar when it comes to the treatment of non human animals? But the society today is still far from realizing this, and that's precisely why veganism is a moral necessity. It's a moral urgency because animals are unarguably the biggest, the most tormented, and the most neglected victims since the dawn of human civilization and until now. And it's time to change this.